For years, I thought the answer to bad Wi-Fi was simple. Just go out and buy a mesh system. And to be fair, mesh did help. It gave me Wi-Fi coverage in more parts of my house. But here's what I didn't fully understand at first. Coverage and speed are not the same thing. I had Wi-Fi bars in rooms where the internet could still be slow, choppy, and frustrating. The connection coming into my house was really fast. The problem wasn't getting fast internet to the house. The problem was getting that speed through the house. I finally fixed that by using a coaxial cable already running through my walls to create a wired backhaul system for my Deco mesh unit. This did not change the internet plan coming into my house. It changed how much of that performance reached the weak areas. I conducted before and after Wi-Fi tests, and the results were amazing. I'll cover these in detail later. First, let me explain what MoCA is, how I connected it to my Deco mesh system, and why the wired backhaul made such a difference. Here's a simple version of the problem. Your internet reaches your modem, and the modem feeds your router. In my setup, the router is my main Deco mesh unit in the office. And near that main Deco, the internet was excellent. But the other Deco units around the house still had to communicate back to the main Deco. That connection between mesh units is called backhaul. I think of each Deco like a little Wi-Fi station. It can serve the devices around it, but only with the connection it receives. If that connection has to travel wirelessly through walls, floors, and distance, the Wi-Fi bars may look fine while the feed behind them is still weak. That was my problem. The mesh system was spreading Wi-Fi coverage, but not always the speed I was paying for. Running new Ethernet through finished walls would have been difficult. Then I realized that the house already had another cable running through the walls, which is this coax cable. MoCA stands for Multimedia over Coax Alliance, but the idea is simple. MoCA lets you use existing coaxial cable, the same kind often used for cable TV and cable internet, as a wired network path. A MoCA adapter takes Ethernet from your router or mesh system and sends that network connection through the coax. At another coax outlet, another adapter converts it back into Ethernet for a computer, TV, switch, or in my case, a Deco mesh unit. I use ScreenBeam ECB6250 adapters. These are MoCA 2.5 adapters on the coax side, and each adapter has 1 gigabyte Ethernet port. That distinction matters. I would not call this a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet adapter. For my use, the gigabyte port was fine. The goal was better backhaul for the Deco satellites. In my house, I used 3 ScreenBeam MoCA adapters. One at the main Deco in the office, one for a Deco in the basement or living area, and one for a Deco in a bedroom. I also used Ethernet cables, short coaxial cables, compatible coax splitters in my existing TP-Link Deco mesh system. The 2-pack kit came with splitters. The one I photographed is labeled BridgeLink 5 to 1670 megahertz, which matters because not every old cable TV splitter will pass MoCA frequencies. I also bought a separate port of entry filter, but the cable company already had one installed outside, so I didn't need the extra one. If you're not sure what you're allowed to change, check with your provider or a qualified installer. Here's how my system is connected. The coax line comes from the outside into the house through the point of entry filter and then splits. One run goes into the office and another goes down towards the basement distribution area. In the office, the coax is split. One side still goes to the modem. The modem connects by Ethernet to the main Deco, which acts as the router for the home network. The other side of the office coax split goes over to the first ScreenBeam adapter. Ethernet then runs from that adapter to the main Deco. That part is important. In my setup, the MoCA adapter connects to the router side of the network, meaning the main Deco, not blindly to an extra modem port. At each remote location, the coax wall jack connects to another ScreenBeam adapter, and Ethernet runs from that adapter into the Deco satellite. I did that for 2 Deco satellite locations, one in the basement or living area and one in the bedroom. My phones, laptops, and other devices are still using Wi-Fi. The difference is that the Deco units now start from a wired feed through the coax instead of relying only on wireless backhaul. The adapter connection itself is simple: Ethernet, coax, and power. The part that took the thought was the coax layout, which lines are connected, which splitter was compatible, and where the filter already existed. Once the coax path was correct, the link lights came on. That was the moment I knew the backbone was working. Now that you've seen the diagrams and how everything connects, let me show you some actual footage I made of the entry point of the cable coming into the house, and then all the way to the final step of hooking a MoCA unit up to a Deco satellite. Okay, so here we are outside, and we can look at the cable box where the cable comes in from the cable company, and you can see the cable coming up, and you can see where it hits a splitter here. The main line hits a splitter. Before it hits a splitter, it's got a filter. I'll give you the details on that, and that will be needed for the MoCA to work appropriately. And then you have this splitter. One goes into the office right on the other side of this wall where the modem and router is, and the other one goes down to the basement, where I'll show you that in a minute. But this is the setup out here, just so you have an idea. And if you have a different configuration, I'll try and cover that in this video as well, or you can ask questions in the comments. So I wanted to show you the basic setup inside the office. So this is where you connect, this is where you would have your modem and your router, and then you would add your ScreenBeam, the MoCA device, to that. So basically what we have here is coming in from the wall. We take our original cable and we put a splitter, and you can see the type of splitter I'm using there. One of these wires will go to the modem over here. The other wire is going to go to the to the MoCA device here. Outside of the MoCA device, you have this line here. That goes into the Deco, which you can see right here. The other Ethernet cable right here is coming from the modem. Okay, so the splitter goes into here, and the splitter cable goes into here. Out of here, Ethernet cable goes into the Deco, and from here, an Ethernet cable goes into the Deco. That's the complete setup up here in my office, okay? So that's the main thing you want to get set up with my configuration. I'm going to cover other configurations as well, but that's how mine is done. And then I'll show some screenshots of the models of these devices as well. Okay, here we are in the basement, and this is the line coming down from upstairs I just showed you from outside. You can see we have a splitter here, and it splits it into two. You might do 3 or 4 at your house, but I just do 2. One goes to the basement living room, and one goes to the ground floor master bedroom, and those I'm going to show you next. Okay, now we're in the downstairs, or the basement living room, and what I used to have was just this Deco device, and it would pull the wireless signal from the upstairs main Deco, the one in the office we showed you that was hooked up to the modem. But now I've added the MoCA device, and I'm going to show you the speed before and after, but let me show you this setup. Okay, so here's the setup right now. You've got the cable coming in from the wall, right? And that goes into the MoCA device here. And then you take an Ethernet cable out of here and plug it into the Deco, which previously didn't have an Ethernet cable. It wasn't hardwired, it was just Wi-Fi. And then you plug in the MoCA device into the power outlet, and that's it. And then you can see the lines that show that it's power and that it's operating effectively. So that's the setup now compared to the old setup, and I'm going to show you the differences, the huge differences that this has made in speed, this little device. I'm not going to show you the upstairs master bedroom because it's basically the same hookup. But I wanted to give you an idea on how simple this is to hook up. It takes minutes. Some people ask, why not just use powerline adapters instead? Well, powerline adapters send data through your home's electrical wiring. They can work, and for some houses, they might be convenient. But electrical wiring was designed first to distribute power, not network data. Performance can vary with wiring, age, circuits, distance, and noise. Coaxial cable was designed to carry communication signals. That doesn't mean that every coax setup is perfect. Splitters, damaged cables, old amplifiers, filters, and layout can all matter. But I gotta tell you, if I had usable coax and electrical outlets available in the same locations, I would always go with MoCA first in my house. Coax gave me the more dependable path and awesome speeds. So what were my results? Well, once the remote Decos had wired MoCA connections, the difference was immediate. The basement had been one of my weakest areas. The bedroom was another place where performance wasn't where I wanted it. Before MoCA, my weak area Wi-Fi tests ranged from under 10 to about 60 megabits per second. After MoCA, Wi-Fi tests in improved areas hit speeds ranging from 580 to 828 megabits per second. What a difference. These were Wi-Fi tests through the Deco system, not direct Ethernet tests from the ScreenBeam adapters. The honest point's simple. The weak parts of the house became much more usable after the Deco satellites had wired backhaul. MoCA did not increase my internet plan. It helped more of the speed already entering the house reach the areas where the wireless backhaul had been holding things back all this time. For me, that changed the house. The Wi-Fi signal was no longer merely present. It was actually fast enough to use reliably, and I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. With all those years of frustration, slow speeds, calling the cable company, and look at where I'm at now. A few things are worth knowing before you buy anything. First, make sure you have coax near the places you want to connect. Second, make sure those coax lines are actually connected to each other. A wall jack can exist without being active. Third, check the splitters. Older splitters may block MoCA frequencies. Replacing an unsuitable splitter was part of making this work in my setup. Fourth, confirm whether you already have a point of entry filter. I bought one separately, then found that the cable company had one already installed on the outside. Fifth, remember that MoCA is the backhaul. If your devices use Wi-Fi, final speeds can still be affected by your plan. Deco model, interference, device, room, and adapter Ethernet ports. Sixth, if your coax is used for satellite TV, amplifiers, provider equipment, or anything more complicated than a simple cable internet setup, check compatibility before changing things. And finally, do not be intimidated by the adapters themselves. Once the coax path is right, the connection is basically Ethernet, coax, and power at each adapter. For years, I assumed my mesh system had solved the network problem because I could see Wi-Fi bars throughout the house. But bars didn't necessarily mean speed. The Deco units could only distribute the connection they were receiving. Some of them were receiving that connection wireless through the walls and the floors. MoCA gave those units the wired feed they were missing. So if you bought a mesh system and still have slow internet in parts of your house, the problem may not be your service or even the mesh units themselves. The missing piece may be the backhaul. And a coaxial cable already hidden in your walls may be the wire you need. I'll put the information below about the ScreenBeam ECB6250 adapters, splitter and filter considerations, and the other parts I use. Before ordering, check your own wiring and equipment because every home's a little bit different. But for my house, this was one of the simplest and most effective network improvements I've made. Mesh gave me coverage, MoCA gave it a backbone. To wrap this up, I want to provide one last thing that some of you may find helpful. Here's a basic layout for what most people probably have at their house. One cable coming in and being split into several cables for the different areas of the house. One cable would route to the modem and the others to the other rooms. The splitter right before the modem would remain. This is different than mine in that I have the two cables coming in from the cable box, not one. I wanted to show you the standard layout in case you find it helpful, as mine is a little different than what most people will find. I hope you found this video useful. I know I learned a lot in my research of MoCA units, and I want to help others with the same questions. I'm not great at making videos, but just starting out, thus the less than perfect video. Thanks for watching though. Add any comments below and I'll try to answer them. And please subscribe, as I hope to make new videos on my home improvements and purchases. Thank you. Quick disclosure about the ScreenBeam adapters and the other parts myself. ScreenBeam and the other manufacturers did not sponsor anything for this video and did not send me anything for free. Some links below may be affiliate links. If you buy them through me, I may earn a commission at no extra cost to you.